Well, it is a beautiful Sunday morning here outside Sacramento, as you can see. And I am so happy right now because look what I've got. What's that, Sage? And I've been wanting a Blackstone for forever, and I finally got one, and now my brother-in-law can't lord his over me anymore. So I'm officially part of the Griddle Nation. But I'm not gonna forget my grill over here off camera, because she's still good to me. But I'm just so excited about getting in on this grill. Now, this isn't just about barbecuing and griddling, excuse me, not grilling, griddling. But I also get to talk a little bit about solar. So I get to talk about two favorite things, right, in one video. Now, this is the first time I've ever had a Blackstone. First time I've even been around one to put one together. You know, I've only seen them in Lowe's. And I tell you, it looked pretty easy, like I put all the parts out, but I tell you what, I had to RTF them, and I am so glad I did, because just like IKEA furniture or a lot of other stuff, if you miss one thing, then the rest of it just doesn't work right. Yeah, if we have any Lego nerds out there, you know what I'm talking about. I've put a few pieces together, and if you're, not methodical or have, really good attention to detail, and you miss something, it just ain't gonna look right. Yeah. So, one thing about this manual, inverter manufacturers, battery manufacturers could take a few lessons from this. Now, I know, and I've had people argue with me about this a lot. And they say, well, Greg, we're in a different industry. We've got lethal voltages, and we have to put in safety precautions. And dude, I totally get it. But the first, 6 to 8, maybe 10 pages of all of our manuals is written by lawyers, right? And nobody reads that shit anyway. They skip right through it. It's only to protect us manufacturers, right? And I am wearing, oops, sorry, Blackstone. I'm wearing my Tayo shirt here, so I'm going to be talking about our stuff pretty soon. Just a little bit chilly still. But, like I said, I totally get why we have to put all that stuff in there. And it's not because people read it. I mean, they barely read the manuals anyway. But it's to protect ourselves against liability. What I want to talk about today, along with the RTFM issue that we have in our industry, is just... I don't even know how to say it politely, but we just have installers that really need some training. Yeah. And so I never tell on anybody, right? And the only reason I'm showing you all this stuff is because it makes a great learning opportunity. Okay. And that is where I come from. I'm not, crapping on installers or companies. I'm just like, if it's happening to one, it's happening to others. Okay, I guarantee it. And so a couple people in my service line that were working on this case sent this to me, a video, which we don't normally get from installers. When they call in, they usually take pictures, and that's cool. But they sent in a video, and my initial gut reaction to this video is like, wow, this is going to end up on one of those... not Murphy Law, but the show where they do dumb stuff and they get killed, like the story about the lawyer that was up in a high rise and leaned on the window during a meeting and actually fell out, right? Like stuff like that. And I just, after watching this video, I didn't know if it was an RTFM moment or a WTF moment, because it was so bizarre. And I know there are more installers out there that do this. So without further ado, let's watch this video together. Okay, so there's definitely something wrong with this inverter. And for anybody that's been in this industry an appreciable amount of time, you could tell that the left side of inverter is usually the DC side from the array. So we definitely have an issue here. And what's even more interesting is the next segment of the video, where they open this pull-through box or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this is kind of weird. So in our industry, you should not need a plumber on site to troubleshoot an inverter. And this isn't the first time I've seen this happen, right? I've seen combiner boxes full of water. Just it's not good. But what gets me is the next part of this video. It's bad enough that there's still arcing and sparking going on in this inverter. And this installer is using his drill to poke around in there. And he says, oh, it's still sparking. So there are so many OSHA violations here. It's so, motorcycle. And so many lessons learned here, right? First of all, this guy doesn't have one piece of PPE on, right? He's not performing troubleshooting properly. Like in the Navy, we would call this piece of gear deranged. This is a deranged piece of equipment. And what that means is it is operating in an unreliable and unsafe manner. So this takes some extra troubleshooting, some extra care, right? Like we would have to make a rubber room for this if we had to work on energized gear, which was almost always a no-no. Like in my opinion, there should only be energized gear operating during troubleshooting in extreme circumstances. And all you guys have taken an OSHA 30 or an OSHA 80 course, you know what we have to do, right, to do this. This is not one of those extreme cases, okay? This installer that they just don't care, or they don't know, or I don't know what it is, but this is definitely not the way to troubleshoot equipment. And something else is going on in the first place. Like, we can point fingers at the lack of understanding of troubleshooting energized gear. But the initial thing is, why is the conduit full of water? Like, that's a totally separate issue. And what's more is, I wish I could say that this was the first time I've seen this issue with an installer, but it's not. This particular installer has already damaged 2 of our inverters, except this time they put the positive and negative conductors in the positive terminal block from the PV array. Like, that's just such a gross inattention to detail, because everything is clearly labeled in our inverter. This is somebody that either, if you want to like poke, he can't read, or he's used to installing somebody else's inverter where they have the strings side by side. That's probably the more likely cause. Yeah, and maybe I could give him a pass on that, but these installers haven't even been to our training. They haven't taken my certification course. Matter of fact, we sent one of our field service guys out to go train them, but they installed this battery cabinet the day before we got out there, and then they were an hour and a half late for our training. But look what they did to this cabinet. Look where the conduit is. And if you look below it, that's where the conduit is supposed to go. So a lot of you are already cringing right now, because you know that drilling in the side of anything violates the NEMA integrity of that device, and it also voids the warranty. And what's more, again, with this installer, this is the 3rd battery cabinet that they've requested from us, because they destroyed a battery cabinet, of course, blamed it on us. And so, we sent them another one, because, it could happen. Maybe you get a bad batch of batteries, could happen. But they did the exact same thing to the next battery bank that we sent them. So it is plausible, however, extremely unlikely that they got the same kind of batteries from a bad batch. Okay, fine. I've seen that happen in such an infinitesimal number of times that you can just discount it. Okay, so when you mess something up and you get another one and you mess it up again in the same way, that is not the manufacturer's issue. That is you. You don't know what you're doing. And then to have the audacity and the gall to come back and say, yeah, you're going to RMA this and you're sending us a new one on your dime is appalling. It really is. And I guarantee, and I'm not speaking for this installer, I'm as in general. If an installer, and you know that the homeowner saw this. You know the homeowners saw the reverse polarity issue, this water in the conduit issue that had the same effect. What do you think that installer told the homeowner? I'll bet a bottle of whiskey that any installer that does something like this, that's their fault, still blames the manufacturer. But maybe I'm just being a cynical old curmudgeon. Yeah. So there's a lot of lessons learned from this incident, and that is my approach. I'm not dogging on these installers or crapping on them yet, because I know that they aren't the only ones that do this to our equipment. And when I say our, I mean as an industry. A good buddy of mine, Andrew Claudio, is on a crusade right now against the solar bros, right? And guys that just kind of haphazardly go through this industry, making as much money as they can until they go out of business. And I don't know, maybe we brought that on ourselves. I don't know. But if you don't get anything else out of this video, other than the Blackstone is freaking awesome, and that we need to work on our manuals a little bit, and we really need to get out there and beat the drums on correct installation. And I don't like saying installation practices or guidelines, because that just makes it sound optional. NAPSUP is coming up, and I can't wait to get out there, because that's real installers. Like, these are the guys that are pro. I love the NAPSUP program. It brings in good people, high caliber people that I love training. And it's very rare that I get a question from an installer, a designer, engineer that I can't answer anymore. But NAPSUP sure does put me to the test. It really does, and I love it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.